Good afternoon and welcome, Sunflowers, to Good Journeys Tarot. As always, I am Rosemary, and we are here for 78 cards in 78 weeks, where I walk through my study and creation of images for a draft of a tarot deck based on my life experience. And so glad for all of you who choose to be here live. I know there are a lot of YouTube lives going on during this time of the day on Sunday. And those who watch it in playback, I appreciate your comments and your likes and everything as well. You can always find my upcoming video at the top of my YouTube page to set your reminder for each week. It's during the same time every week. And right now we are just having a heyday with featured guests. And I will introduce today's in just a moment. But as always, I thought I'd share what's been going on here. So this week, I have been working with the Urban Crow Oracle over on my Instagram lives in the mornings. I'm trying to work Oracle into my personal readings. And so I'm sharing some of that with you guys. And I had talked about how I had been missing my crow friends, and all of a sudden, last week, when I was standing at my altar, meditating, I heard them. They showed back up. They were all over the place in my backyard. It was just fantastic. Lovely, lovely to see them again. And so I had to grab this deck when that happened and start working with it a little bit. I also, for my birthday, did grab the Witch's Moon box from October, which was all about crows. And grabbed the Witch's Bounty this month, which was about the Morrigan, which is associated with crows. And you'll see this is the crystal that came with it this month. There are two crows on either side of this galaxy obsidian. It's beautiful. So those are the things that are new here. So let's jump in. Let's introduce our guest for today. And you may know her as Ferocious Ink over on Instagram. She is a graphic designer and creator of Tarot Disassembled, which bad Rosemary, I did not grab the box. Even though I have the card out, here is the book that goes with her deck. There you go. I was privileged to have met her and hung out with her at Northwest Tarot Symposium. Just a fabulous, fabulous human being. Welcome to Jennifer Steidley.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be just chatting with you again, Rosemary.
Yes, I enjoyed hanging out with you, even late at night.
Right.
Right.
A couple drinks in.
Getting readings from puppet goats and
that's right.
Stuff, right.
There were some unique moments at Newt's.
Yeah. Of course, I always have to question the reading that says I'm about to meet someone. It's so yeah. So
is that what Gary
the goat is the only one to ever see love in the cards for me. So
I don't know. I think Gary's a pretty good reader. So
really,
he might be onto something.
And Gary the goat is over on Instagram if anybody wants to check him out. It's in the list of people that I follow. So we are here today to talk about the Page of Swords. This was a card I drew last week with Sasha for us to work with this week. And here is the Smith-Waite image. Mm-hmm. And I have always interpreted this completely differently than the way Waite describes it in his pictorial key.
Really?
Every time I look at this card, I see this kind of like girl that's having fun, kind of just swinging her sword around, like dancing, kind of like just footloose and fancy free. But here's how Waite described it. Waite says, a lithe, active figure holds a sword upright in both hands while in the act of swift walking. He is passing over rugged land, and about his way the clouds are collocating wildly. What does that mean? I guess moving. Collocating wildly. He is alert and lithe, looking this way and that as if an expected enemy might appear at any moment. And so hearing people describe this card always catches me by surprise, because when I look at it, I get this idea of this person who's like footloose and fancy free and kind of having fun with the sword, a windblown look. And then there's this description, which is very much like, okay, this is like the young soldier who is like in a rough area and is like having to watch everywhere and all of that kind of thing. And so I thought, let's look at how others interpret it, to see what they say. And that's what my process has been throughout my journey with the project, has been to look at other decks. Oh, there's Amy from Strength Reverses joined us, and Lisa Rhodes is here. Welcome, guys. Glad to have you. A lot of times you find decks simply will just redraw what they see in the Smith-Waite.
Oh, definitely.
You don't get a lot of new added information, though. Sometimes it is interesting what you see. Waite always describes the pages, all of them, as young men. But many people, even looking at the deck that Pamela Coleman Smith drew, look at it and see young women.
Right.
And so I love how the Robin Wood made it into a young woman.
Oh, yeah. I love that one.
And this has that same feeling to me. It just feels like she's footloose and fancy free. She's just kind of charging out there with her sword, swinging it around kind of thing.
Yeah, I think Waite was always, anything I've read that Waite wrote about the cards, he was kind of intense. Like, he always read what he brought into it was very intense. And I love that Pamela Coleman Smith but probably took what he said, but also very much used her own intuition, used her own kind of guidance to kind of, because we see something very different than what he describes. I think most people see something different. I get a lot of full energy from most of the pages, and which I love. I'm all about that full energy. And the Page of Swords even looks very much, there's no cliff, but if there was, they're just one step away from like la 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 off the cliff, Absolutely.
And interestingly, as I've studied to create this deck, various decks, various books, one of the things that I've noticed is that there's actually a lot of influence of traditional TDM meanings in Waite's pictorial key
Uh-huh.
that we don't see like in more modern times. Like, for example, with this fellow, the Page of Swords is considered a spy. Like, this is the person that's sneaking around, getting information,
Interesting.
checking everything out in the TDM. And that's one of the things that Waite uses to describe him. This is the Curious Travels. It's another carefree looking fellow with the wind blowing and the leaves on the bottom flowing by.
Yeah, I like that one.
I like that. It's very relaxing. It gives me that love that I like.
Right.
So, what cards did you have for us? Do you have a couple you want to share?
I pulled probably way too many, but
Well,
yeah,
some weeks I have 10 or so, and some weeks I have 15. I
right.
probably have more than I should have this week. I usually do them in categories. Those were my Smith Waite looking cards.
Yeah, I definitely pulled cards that aren't very Smith Waite looking, which is probably good for the discussion. But interestingly, you were talking about how a lot of people tend to see the pages in general as more of a feminine figure. And so I definitely have quite a few where it's more of a younger a female that's being portrayed. This one's from the Afro Goddess Tarot.
Okay.
And this one has a little shimmer, so I don't know if you can see. She's beautiful. She's definitely a lot more relaxed than standing. I don't know. Sorry, I keep kind of moving it the wrong way. There we go. And she calls her the Daughter of Swords. So her pages in her deck are the daughters of each suit, which is kind of interesting. And then I have another one that has just another kind of real younger female. I like this one a lot, the Messenger of Swords. This is from the Tarot of the Cosmic Seed. And I like, she just looks to me like she knows some stuff, but she's also innocent. You know what I mean? So I like that she's definitely got some of that knowledge of that mental suit of the suit of swords, but she looks like she has lots to learn, but is also knows some things already. So I like, there's something about her little coy look that I like a lot.
And so it's interesting. Both of those cards renamed the page, and a lot of people will do that, like calling them messengers or heralds or that kind of thing. Or you even get daughters, princesses, and some of that is from other systems, but also some of that is trying to make the cards more gender inclusive rather than being all male. And it varies from place to place. One of the things that I've decided only in the last few weeks to do with mine is that the page and knight in the cups and pentacle suit are going to be female, and then the page and knights in the air and fire suit are going to be male.
Oh, that makes a
So
lot of sense.
at least in presentation.
Yeah.
So and so that's just kind of how I decided to do it. Here are two of my favorite little women, and usually it's younger women. I like children as pages, and because they really are just connecting with everything around them, and
Right.
they are full of information, whether you want to hear it or not, sometimes from them. And they'll say things that adults might not, that are quite obvious and probably need to be said. But I loved, as we talked about on Instagram, how this card and this card, to a certain degree, remind me of Arya Stark
I love
and
that.
her needle.
Needle, yeah.
These two girls, just lovely. This is the Slow Tarot, which is one of my favorites.
Beautiful.
And this is the Salsarabito.
That one I really love. And that is total Arya Stark vibes. I love that.
And Crowley liked to think of the pages as like they have the potential for all of their element, right? And so he called them the princesses, and he showed them as receiving all of the power of their element. And I feel like that's true. Even the Smith Waite image, they have that potential, but I think there's this aspect where they're still maturing. They're at the bottom of the tree of life.
Right.
And so for me, I love the Trick or Treat Tarot.
Oh,
Because that sword is just a little bit big for him, He's still
it.
growing into his power,
Right.
so to speak. And that actually showed up in the Ellis deck as well. That sword is almost as tall as that guy.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I've got this little cutie from the Ascension Tarot. His little face. Oh my gosh, he's so cute. Look how cute he is. And it's got all of his little interests. I feel like there's a little telescope, but there's all these books that he's read. It makes me think of my son, who cannot get enough information. Like he's like definitely a seeker of knowledge, and just wants to soak up anything he can read that is of interest to him. So that one really tickles me.
I think that's why sometimes they associate science with the swords because of the information gathering thing, going out
Yeah,
there to learn everything you can about everything.
definitely.
Yeah. Um, these are some more that show children versus older persons, but I love the Mystic Garbage Tarot and her take on things like this child is curious and is
Uh-huh.
wanting to learn about this new creature they have found. Who knows what lesson they're going to learn?
Right, the trash panda. It's a trash panda.
Yeah. So we actually have Lisa's just starting studying tarot, and she asked, do all decks have the same meaning for their card for cards from deck to deck? Well, the answer is it seems like no, but after you study them for a while, the truth is yes. I mean, you can still see all of the same meanings, like from say Crawley's deck, the Thoth, to the Smith Waite. Even though those are vastly different, you still get a lot of the same information once you think about the various correspondences to the card. Though you will find in various decks that people have a specific focus. Like they'll focus in on a particular keyword, and that's where they get their image from. What are your thoughts on that as far as from deck to deck? Can you read them all the same, or do you think you have to kind of learn one person's specific meanings for their cards?
I think that there is a base foundation that's there in every deck, like as far as the meaning. So there is an underlying common base foundation that runs throughout all decks, but I think every creator, artist, writer kind of puts their because what they get from that meaning is going to be slightly, just like everybody has a different perspective. It's kind of like their different perspective on that foundational meaning. So yes, so it's kind of like, I agree with you. It's like a yes and a no. Like it's yes, I think that those meanings come from one system of, meaning, so that there are underlying meanings that are true for any deck for those cards. But I think that every, creator brings something a little bit different to the table as far as what their perspective is on that meaning and what they want to focus on. So I agree with you.
Absolutely. So what other cards did you have to share with us today about our Page of Swords?
I've got some that are really, let's see, this one is kind of wild. From Zeke's Arcana. This one's just intriguing to me. And it's because Zeke's Arcana has some really interesting kind of cosmic beings. And this one, it's almost like, what I took it as is it's almost because it's all these things are happening on this microscopic level near his head. And I feel like it's because it's all this learning is kind of being integrated. So what he's learning, and then there's even a little staircase at the top. And I feel like it's a really interesting way to illustrate the knowledge that is coming into the page and what the page is kind of taking from that knowledge and how it's ascending them a little bit. Because that's, knowledge definitely anytime we're seeking and absorbing knowledge, we're ascending a little bit. We're learning and growing. So I like that little staircase at the top of his mental realm there. It's kind of an interesting take on it.
Since you mentioned ascending, I want to go ahead and share the Tree of Life real quick. And so the way I've always pictured the Tree of Life is that, you start at the top and you're coming down from the creation to the actual manifestation. And so that's your ones through your tens. And so now you are going back up, trying to figure out where everything came from and understanding the universe. And so you start at the 10 again as the page, and you are ascending up the tree again to become either the king or queen, as it were, in an attempt to understand the universe, basically.
Yeah.
At least that's my take on it. And so I like that staircase. That was actually kind of cool.
Yeah, wasn't it? It was really an interesting little twist on it. And this is one I love. I love this one just because I love collage decks. I kind of have a real soft spot for beautifully done collage decks. This is from the Vibra Tarot. I don't know that it brings anything dramatically new to the meaning of page, but it definitely enunciates kind of that the bird, the bird imagery, that there are birds on the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith Page of Swords, little tiny birds in the background. But where she's almost kind of becoming the bird, so that element of air is a lot more potent, I guess, in this one. But I just think it's a beautiful collage. So I don't know that it brings anything I know you might see something kind of more. I guess it also makes me, anytime there's animal spirits, it makes me want to instantly go Google, okay, is that a woodpecker? If so, what does the woodpecker have? What is the symbolism of woodpecker? I want to know specifically what that animal spirit brings to the table.
Absolutely. I see your question, Lisa, and we'll chat about that towards the end of the broadcast. We actually see a lot of cards where academics or books are associated with the cards. Like here is, oh, I hate that it does that. It won't go back to the setting I had after I show something. So this is the Bone Stone and Earth Flash, all the little books flying around.
Yeah.
This totally just makes me think of Harry Potter for some reason when I see it.
Right.
There are a couple of cards in the deck that kind of had that kind of feel to me, either Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter, but just knowledge flying everywhere. I
Yeah,
mean, it's very interesting. Gorgeous depiction by Anna Torian there.
that's beautiful.
And they did the same thing in the Page of Swords here with the Central Morte. There's a book right there that he's studying. But what I love about this deck, and this is why I always show the court cards from this deck, is they use the pips from playing cards as the eyes for the skulls. And so
Oh,
this is a spade.
I
Uh,
almost didn't catch that. That's
it's
really interesting.
yeah, I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that's an interesting detail. That's cool.
And then of course here's the light seers.
Oh, I love the light
It has
seals.
a little bit of that windy feel too because of the way she's kind of holding the. I don't know. I guess those light bulbs are balloons. Um, and then the birds are there as well. And she has a little bit of that fool feeling that you were talking about. There she's
It
standing on
does.
the precipice on that little thin
Yeah,
line with
yeah.
her books. Yeah.
I love that. I love the little light bulbs just because that's such a perfect, you think of that, the little light bulb over the head, when you have a thought about something like
Yeah.
bing. So I love that
Yeah.
the light bulbs are
I
the
didn't pull it out, but the that's actually what the Hip Chick Tarot has. It's a child with a light bulb above their head,
right.
um, as this particular card. Yeah.
Yeah, this one
So,
this one doesn't have a figure in it. This one's from the Penumbra Tarot.
oh yes, I intentionally didn't pull that one, but I'm glad that you did.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it doesn't have the figure, but what it makes me think of is, because there is, I think, a lot of meanings. A lot of people tie the Page of Swords. They call it the element of swords in this deck. The pages are elements, but a lot of the pages, a Page of Swords meanings, people tie back to writing. And so there's a lot of, if you get that card, especially if you're seeking to write a book, if you are a writer, I know there's a lot of energy in there for new ideas, new book ideas, specifically for writers. So I thought that one was a beautiful illustration of the energy that carries for potential or current writers.
Yes, that those cards are to me are almost an interesting nod to the Thoth. Seeing that these are the full potential of their element, and so they
Right.
chose to call them the elements. And but then to me, it because there's not a person there, it almost looks like the ace,
It
right?
looks
Which
a lot like,
is
yeah,
an interesting correlation because the ace is the beginning and the
right.
page is the beginning, but just from a different perspective, right?
That's true. That's true. Yeah,
One representing the concept and the other representing the actual manifestation of the concept,
right,
so to
right.
speak. And we'll actually look at that when we look at my card too, because that was one of my inspirations was my aces
Uh-huh.
for them.
I
So
can't wait
I
to
only
see your
have
card.
3 more cards that I was going to share today. How
Great.
about you? You got some more over there that you want to share?
Let's see. One, two. I have about three others that I pulled out too. So I have about three left as well.
Yeah. So here's another daughter, in this case, daughter of air. This is the
Ooh.
new era elements, and some decks will try to add diversity by associating the suits with specific regions of the world. And
I've
so in
heard
this
that.
case, hair being associated with the East. And
Right.
so we have her here with her katana. And I can't help but think of Mulan every time I see this card of
Yeah.
when she chops off her hair and goes out taking action, basically, based
Right.
on the information that she has it in front of her at the time, Um, and so, yeah, that was one.
I have a katana sword.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I've been
Cool.
trained in katana.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I have a drum, but it's only ever set on my wall. I've never I tried to learn it and then the class fell apart. So,
Right.
and and one of the reasons I bring up that action and taking action is that in the Urban Tarot, they actually call the Page of Swords the activist. So, like, this is like
Oh.
the person who is inclined to act on the knowledge that they have. Like, and a lot of times, Benabel Wynn says these pages of swords are often seen as like polarizing or even controversial because they like pull out all these ideas that people don't like to hear, right? I
Right.
swear, as I've studied this card, I kept thinking of myself as a child. Like, you know, I wanted to share all the information I had about something, and I always played the devil's advocate because I would like share the thing that the people weren't considering when they were thinking about the thing they were thinking
You
about.
would
And so,
challenge them. Yeah, like challenge.
right,
Yeah,
and so that's kind of what we get with this card sometimes.
right. Well,
Yeah.
the whole sword suit is such a kind of biting suit in and of itself, because if you think about, like, the Queen of Swords tends to be portrayed the little bit most kind of like stoic and a little bit severe compared to the other queens. And anytime that sword's in play, whether it's a child holding the sword or a queen or a king, like, they're cutting through the bullshit. They're like, so if it's a child, it's just the way, like you mentioned before, it's the way children will just say whatever is in their mind. They don't have any concern if they're hurting feelings or not, because they're not quite there yet emotionally, maturity wise, so they're just gonna blah 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 blah, and there's no filter, and there's something beautiful about that, like we all kind
Yeah,
of learn from that too.
absolutely, absolutely.
Let's see, I have this one's just beautiful. It doesn't have a figure. It's from the Tarot of Oneness. I just got this one the other day, and she calls the pages the inspirations. And I love
Okay.
that this little bird is flying, like being released almost from this box. And again, you have the paper and the pen. So there's definitely a nod to, again, there's going to be some writing, call to writing, or call to, journaling as well. And there's some beautiful little things like gears and a little magnifying glass. And I don't know, it's just a beautiful compilation of
It
that
is gorgeous.
one.
Yep. So I'm out of cards. I do have one more, but to start another
Yeah.
topic. Yeah, I have one more to start another topic. But do you have any more before we move on?
I have a couple, but the only one I think I'll share is, I should probably share my own card, just because.
Well, that was the next card.
Oh, was that the next one? Oh, that's funny.
So we can talk about symbols. So it's so interesting to me when I look at this card. I don't really see that much in it, right? I look
Right?
at the picture and it's like, okay, there's a person holding a sword, standing on some dirt, and then I look at your card and there's like all of these different little symbols
Yeah.
on it. And so, yeah, so talk about your card some and
Sure. Yeah.
symbols
So
that you chose.
for anybody who's not aware of my deck, it's called Tarot Disassembled. So the concept of the whole deck is taking the symbolism and kind of pulling it out away from these kind of more pictorial narratives, so that you can really focus on what are the different symbols trying to say. This card, one of the most interesting things I found when I researched and dug, into like the learning of this card when I was creating the deck, the reason I have that little arrow in the top, I guess, I know it's mirrored, so I forget it. Let's see. So yeah, the top right corner of the card there, that red arrow, that was my way of symbolically portraying in the Rider-Waite-Smith, that page has their head turned looking to the left. And there's very few figures. There's only a few figures in the Rider-Waite-Smith where they're turned looking to the left. And that's meant to be symbolic of looking to the past, whereas looking to the right is looking towards the future. And what I thought was really fascinating about that was, looking to the past, it's, they already have this kind of childlike, character in the page, and pages tend to be younger. So like, it's almost like, why do they need to look to the past? Because they don't have as much of a past as some of us do that have been here a lot longer. But I think it brings up, I think all the pages can kind of bring up that, almost that inner child work, and the benefit of what we can learn knowledge wise from reviewing and analyzing our own past. So definitely in the suit of swords, which is obviously the mental realm, the knowledge, there's a lot of knowledge to be gained from that task, which can be quite painful of a task at times, forcing ourselves to review, look backwards and review. So I thought that was kind of an interesting that looking to the left was meant to be looking to the past.
That was something that caught my attention when I was reading as well, and even if you don't read it as looking to the past, you'll notice that they're looking around in the opposite direction of where they're headed, given that idea of they are alert and they're watching everything around them, that curiosity, that spy that we talked about. And I
Yeah.
couldn't help but, as I was reading, thinking about when I was a kid and I would visit someone for the first time, I always wanted to see what was in all of the nooks and crannies of their houses.
Right.
Um, and so it's like, okay, yeah, that totally seems like a Page of Swords thing, trying to
Right.
see everything
A
and learn
curiosity.
about everything.
Yeah.
Tony is here from Antoinette Intuitive Tarot and Jewelry. She's saying hello to us. Hi, Tony. Glad you could stop in today. So let's talk about some keywords then for the Page of Swords. We've talked about some things like curiosity and their being a student, that type of thing, thirst for knowledge and everything. But there's a little bit of a restless energy. And I guess that's what I was getting from that carefree, footloose, and fancy free kind of feeling that I feel when I look at that image.
Uh-huh.
But one of the things that's interesting is that depending on who you ask, they will say that the page is about a different type of news.
Yes.
So like some
Yes.
people see this as a news about a challenging situation. Some of them see this as the card of good news. And some people see it as like news about being vindicated, like you were right. So like this is news
Right.
about revealing the truth, basically, of a situation. And historically, like with the Tarot de Marseille, the Page of Wands was the news card.
Right.
But nowadays we see all of them as messengers, because they're all pages, right?
Right.
And so, and this one being about air. So what is your take about that as far as when you
Yeah,
look
and
at
I
it?
love that. And I love that you brought that up, because I was thinking about that, how they're like they're the bearer of news. I feel like I tend to read most cards unless it's, well, not unless it's reversed, unless I feel like the situation I'm asking about, this is for me personally, when I read for myself, I usually know if the energy is heavy before I even ask. So like I tend to try to err on the side of, okay, what's the positive? Like what is being told to me that's a little more positive? So I think it's a good news thing. But I also think because this is the suit of the mental realm, it all comes back to your thoughts. And it all comes back to you, somebody who could get good news that could be really serving them, something that's good that's about to happen, whether it's, like you said, vindication, or whether it's good news about a job they're getting or something. But it's really going to come back to how do they perceive this news, because anybody can take anything and make it, and with their thoughts want to be negative, then they can make it, well, this is going to be now a lot more work, or like they can always find the negative in it. So I feel like it comes back to, it's never good or bad. It depends on how you're going to perceive it with your thoughts, and how your thoughts are going to shift, whether they're going to be positive and perceive it as such, or negative. That's my thought.
Yeah. So it's almost as though, like, it depends on what the information is, right? It could be
Right.
good or it could be bad. But to me, it's going to be new information to you, right? It's going to be something you didn't know before, because this is, after all about knowledge and about communication and that type of thing. So,
but going back to that Fool energy of the pages, I feel like the pages all have that youthful energy if you tap into it, where children can take anything and adapt, and they can, and I'm not trying to talk about anything too heavy, like obviously there's true trauma and stuff, but I mean, as far as like shifts in their world, they can take most news and find something that's a little bit magical or a little bit exciting, within that news. So even something that may seem like this isn't very good news, there's usually still some kind of lesson or like light in there, and children tend to have a way to find that better than adults do sometimes. So,
absolutely.
in a sense.
Before we talk about the shadow side of the card, so to speak, I want to mention some keywords that come up specifically because they relate also to the ace. And so that's why I feel like the pages and the aces have some relationship there.
Uh-huh.
Like sometimes this card can simply be about new insight, like I was talking about, or clarity, ideas, learning, all things that I would associate with the ace as well. And
Right.
so, but then this is a person, right? And so maybe it's a person that's bringing these things, or it's you utilizing these things. But it kind of takes us back to this idea that Benabel talked about in her video on the pages, that Italia said basically pages are modifiers. The way the page is going to operate depends on the cards that they're paired with.
Right.
So, like, say, the Four of Pentacles and the Page of Swords might be about a gift, basically. Or if you have, what's another good example? I can't remember the ones that she gave. She gave some really good ones, but basically the pages are modifiers. So if you see this Page of Swords, it's going to be about, seeing truth in this other thing, or,
Right.
not necessarily, has to be a person, although a lot of people read them as people. And
That's
what
I like that word modifier. I might have to really remember that. That's an fascinating way to think of the pages in general, that they're modifiers. I love that. I've never heard that before.
So I always like to talk about the shadow side a little bit, even though I don't shuffle reversals into my decks. I will consider like the possible downsides of the cards when I'm reading,
Sure.
and depending on the situation and the other cards and everything in the reading. And one of the things that kept coming up in my reading was that this is probably going to be the gossip.
Yeah.
Uh, they're going to be all talk, right? Just talk, 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 talk.
Yep.
Um, Possibly even dishonesty, because ordinarily we see the swords upright is about truth.
Right.
So maybe in the shadow, this is that troublesome person, that person that doesn't communicate well, because of that immaturity that they might have. What are some ways that you see the card in a shadow light?
Yeah, I was actually reviewing what I wrote in my own book, just because I
Oh,
forget sometimes what I I'm like, what did I think it was? Yeah, some other ways I saw the shadow side of it is being careless with your words. So if you're, well, I mean, we talked about how children kind of don't have a filter, but there is that balance of using your words to hurt, and using your words carelessly. I also had thought, well, I know we talked about the gossip and stuff, but I also, maybe not so much a gossip in a malicious way, but telling big fish stories, like where you're really kind of telling, it's bordering on dishonesty, like it's that fine line, because you're not necessarily telling not necessarily telling a lie, but you start embellishing and the fish was this big, and where that becomes a problematic, where you're really kind of expounding the truth a little bit too much and stretching it.
yeah.
Let's see, what else did I say? Oh, yeah. A bit of bad news, gossip. Oh, not speaking your truth. Like, on the shadow side, that, there's a lot of beauty to somebody who's less filtered and who can say what's truly in their heart and their mind. And on the shadow side, people who are always filtered, and this might be me kind of even talking about myself. I think I'm a lot better than I used to be, but I definitely grew up as a people pleaser. And so I learned a lot of coping tactics that included I don't need to worry about my own feelings. I should just say, oh, no, you're fine. I'm not upset at all. It's fine. Everything's fine. So like not speaking your truth, since the swords are kind of that realm of truth and honesty and knowledge, but there's the truth aspect, like you said, the swords tend to bring. So the shadow side can be just not being true to your own thoughts and not sharing them honestly. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So at this point, I'm ready to look at what I did. And so interesting thing as we were going, we have 19 cards left in this process.
Ooh.
And so this is card 20. This is the last of the pages.
So you've done all the pages
I've
now.
done all 4 pages now.
This is going to be good.
And so I haven't actually, even though I only have 19 cards left, I haven't finished the major arcana. I haven't finished any suits, and I
Because you
haven't
truly
finished
did this on the draw every time, like drew which one you were going to
right.
work.
Yes, I'm
I love
drawing from my very first working deck
it. Hmm.
each week, and so it's random. And so I haven't even finished any set of courts yet.
Right.
So it's interesting. This is the first thing I finished are the pages, those
Yeah.
students, those learners, and so
That's
these were the first 3 pages that I did, and I have actually edited this one numerous times because it was the first one.
uh-huh.
Um, and speaking of names, I decided not to call them pages or messengers or anything like that. I wanted to give them all archetypal names, and so in
Oh,
the courts, and so I did put envelopes in the corner to remind people these are our messengers or pages,
I love that.
and then their elemental correspondence. But I'm now rethinking this word, the student. I guess because I'm trying to figure out the right word for someone who learns through doing
Mm.
versus someone who learns from research. So, like the page of swords, I see more as the book person, whereas the page of earth, I see more as the let me get my hands dirty kind of person.
Yeah.
And haven't come up with the right word. The closest I can come up with is the explorer.
Ooh.
But then that's what I've been calling my knights, explorers of air, explorer of water, etc.
Right.
And so I'm not 100% sure. Working on the name still a little bit. But in fact, this card originally was an older girl, and I up and changed it because I wanted all of them to be children.
I love these so much. These
Yes.
are
And
beautiful.
so
I love
we did this one just a few weeks ago. And what's interesting is that I have been very conscious of my aces. So if you look, the
oh.
Ace of Wands actually is a closer up viewpoint of this page
I
than
love that it's a
the Ace.
sparkler. I love that so much.
And so I tried to do the same thing with this one. I'm actually updating this one still. I'm probably going to change the background a little bit, but I'm conflicted in my pentacles because I've used roses in some and I've used apples in others.
Right.
And so I'm going to try to have to figure out a way to combine the two, and it may just be adding roses into the background of the courts of the earth suit. Uh, and I actually haven't done the ace for the cup suit yet.
I
That's
love
the only ace that's left.
I love the dreamer. I love her little wings, and I love the goldfish in the bowl. This is so sweet. It
Yeah.
makes me just like my
So,
heart happy looking at it.
yeah. So basically, these are just collages of Creative Commons imagery as a kind of a draft or mock up of what I'd like to do if I can find somebody to illustrate it at some point. So this was my ace,
Uh-huh.
which was writing in the book, the idea, right?
Uh-huh.
And I had to have the butterfly there for air and the little dandelions and
Love
all
it.
flying and everything.
So pretty.
And so this was the first and only draft so far of the page, which is a little bit is the take on the ace, right? Now there's a child reading the book. And again, I did choose male expressing people for the pages of
For the wands
Swords and Fire.
yeah.
And so, and I wanted the book to be too big for him because I wanted it to be that idea that he's still growing,
Yeah.
right? And so he'll be able to handle the book one day, just like that sword in the Trick or Treat Tarot.
Right.
And so that's kind of where I am right now with it. And I keep thinking this needs to be the student, this needs to be the student, but but then I don't know what to call the earth. So
Right. Yeah, there's got to be a name for when you get when you learn through touch and hands and dirt and there's got to be an actual proper name for that. What is the name for that?
Right, there has to be a good word. So this is Tony's word,
Through
proprioceptor.
sensory
Yeah, I'm
organs.
like, I wouldn't know
Yeah,
what that was. I doubt anybody who looks at my card would know what that
right.
was. So that's a little odd for me, but yeah, I totally
But I love that I just learned a new word though. I'm like, that's actually
I
really cool.
actually yeah, but I'm looking so yeah, tactile learner. So that's I'm looking
Yeah,
for a one word to describe that person. Like say I did with the others, the dreamer, the performer,
right.
the student, and then the I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
know what it is. I
it'll
don't know
come to
what it
you.
is.
It'll come to you, but
So that's kind of where I am right now. I wish I had a way of changing the color of the book, but again, I'm using Creative Commons imagery. I'm not
right,
doing them myself. So, you know, if it were, I think if it were purple or if it were yellow, then it would look more like part of this family, which has
right,
started to grow. The council and the diplomat, which are the queen and king.
right.
Um, but they all have the butterfly, you know,
I
so
love
that's one thing. Um,
this deck is going to be beautiful. I love it, Rosemary. This is great.
but again, it was only ever intended to be the draft, like because I want to hire
Right.
an illustrator to actually do it in imagery that I could actually.
This doesn't have to be a draft. This is to me.
But
This
I
is
mean,
like full on.
well, but because it's Creative Commons imagery, I can't really
Right.
like sell it. So like,
Sure.
I could
Sure.
let other people print it if they wanted to print it, but I don't feel like I could make any money off of it. So, which I
Right.
don't want to do necessarily, but yeah, I do want to get it out in the world. And
Definitely.
so I did something similar with a Learning Lenormand deck, and the test copy of that is on its way to me this week. So
Oh, exciting! So much.
look for
It's
a
so
flip.
exciting when you get
Look
it.
for a flip through, everybody,
Yeah.
of that. Let me just remove this for a second. So now we get to draw next week's card.
Wow.
And next week, Jennifer Ball from Jennifer Ball's Witch House is going to be here with me. And also met her at Northwest Terrace Symposium and got to hang out with her a bit.
Excuse me.
And looking forward to that. Whoops. Oh, well. Yeah, I'm not I dropped the card, so that's the one you got to use person. So.
Right. I'm a very poor shuffler, so I'm not either because otherwise there's always cards flying out, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, people are still giving me ideas and like, okay.
Oh, for your word, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. The
Good.
participator.
Ooh.
Doesn't have a ring to me. Doesn't ring to me, but yeah. I do appreciate people's ideas. If you go to the link tree, which is should be visible at the top of the chat there, highlighted. I do have a Facebook group, Good Journeys into Tarot, where I invite people to look at the image before I show it on Sundays, and what I'm thinking about with the deck, and give their input and their ideas. And yeah, it's harder to shuffle when you only have a few cards. You know, it's like, am I
Right.
really doing anything? So yeah, we'll be finished with this at the end of March. So we're going to do it as a spread today.
That's
Let's see where
exciting.
we grab that card. And
So now I feel like this is a reading at the same time for everybody.
it's yeah, well, and that's the interesting thing is that I find many times these cards relate to my life.
Right.
And based on the readings I've done so far this weekend, I'm pretty sure that this is going to be my week. And it is the Ten of Swords.
Oh. Ouch.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
geez.
I already am looking at things that could possibly go wrong this week. Like, you know, my neighbors are putting up a fence.
Okay.
And they've decided to pay to replace part of my fence because it's between us and
Right.
it's rotted. So there won't be a fence, and I'm gonna have to like actually take my dogs for walks.
Oh, right, because you can't just let them
Because
go. Yeah.
they won't be able to go out the dog door for
Yeah.
however long that fence is down. And so I know that's going to be a little bit of a frustration.
Yeah.
And
It's
of
funny
course,
because it
I got
actually
no
looks like
work
a
done
fence.
last. Huh?
It looks like a fence in his back a little bit.
Right. Yeah. He let that border get to him, man. He just laid right down in the middle of that boundary.
Right.
So that'll be an interesting one to do next week.
Yeah.
Again with Jennifer Ball, everyone. So tell us what is going on with you. What is the thing you want everybody to know about, and where they can get in touch with you besides the links that I put in the description box below?
Yeah. So let's see, I am doing a Kickstarter in week and a half, hopefully, knock on wood. So basically I've done my tarot disassembled deck, and I've come up with another deck in that family called Tarot Assembled. And I can show a couple quick cards of just the prototype deck, but it's kind of the idea of taking those individual symbols, and now it works like an oracle, or works in tandem with another deck. Any Rider-Waite-Smith deck I feel like it could work with. So I think it's going to be kind of fun. I'm excited to work with it myself. So that's my big thing coming up right now, is just trying to gear up for that Kickstarter for this deck, and hoping it'll become a real deck if everything goes well. And then everybody can find me at Ferocious Ink on Instagram and Facebook. And there's a link tree on my bio there. And that's me.
Wonderful. Yeah, I want to thank you so much for being here today with me, and taking time to spend with us.
Yeah.
I'm going to share one or two more things with my followers, and then I'll catch up with you backstage.
Sounds great.
All right. All right, everybody. I want to thank you for being here. Before we go, I did want to share one thing with you, so that you can get it while it's on sale, and that is the winter edition of the Cartomancer, which is actually discounted right now for the print edition if you like to hold the actual paper in your hands. My second article, The Privilege of Tarot, will be in this edition. And so please do go and grab that if you'd like. The electronic version will be available at some point in the near future. So do check that out. Look for me again next week with Jennifer Ball, where we'll talk about the Ten of Swords. And as always, until next time, everybody, good journeys.